Issues are adjusting quickly this week, and the industry is moving just as quickly to keep up with what is happening. We will tackle two of the headline makers, conversations about avian flu's jump from birds to bovines, and we'll try to figure out how much relief a temporary channel can bring to the port of Baltimore.
Live from 4-2 Tuesday via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Dr. Fred Gingrich from the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. Then it's Ken Eriksen, Polaris Analytics and Consulting, and directly following the news, Karen Bonert from Farm Journal's Milk. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Lorre.
Yeah, I tell you what, Davis, the issues that the industry is dealing with right now, it's creating all kinds of turmoil. Bottom line, it's turmoil in the markets, the livestock market in particular. We saw what happened to the cattle complex yesterday. Well, today you got feeder cattle more than $3 higher, almost $4 higher.
They got a little more work to do, though, to make up for yesterday.
That
was a big down move, dude.
Yes, they do. Live cattle, a buck and a quarter higher here this morning. So getting back some of those losses from yesterday. Hey, real quick, congratulations to the University of Connecticut, North Carolina State, South Carolina, University of Iowa, Purdue University, and to Alabama. So there's, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
counting.
6. What am I missing? Oh, I'm not missing anything, because for the first time, two schools are sending both the men's and the women's teams into the Final Four, UConn and NC State. Very impressive. Very impressive, yes. And, here real close to the heart of AgriTalk and University of Iowa punched its ticket into the women's Final Four last night. So congratulations to the Hawkeyes getting into the Final Four with the ladies.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, man, we got a lot of news to cover too.
We do.
Let's go ahead and get started.
Yep, I'll start with the weather. Heavy snow over the upper Great Lakes, hello South Bend, upper Mississippi Valley on Tuesday and Wednesday. Heavy snow over upstate New York and northern New England on Wednesday. There is a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms over parts of the Ohio valleys on Tuesday, and 2 areas of slight risk over parts of the mid-Atlantic and Florida Peninsula on Wednesday. A slight risk of excessive rainfall over parts of the lower Great Lakes, Ohio, Tennessee valleys, and central Appalachians on Tuesday.
Yeah, eastern Iowa's getting it right now into southwest Wisconsin. There's snow just behind it. If I look out the window of the bunker, there is snow in northeast Iowa right now.
All right.
So it's going to accumulate. There could be 3 to 5 inches in areas of Wisconsin, southeast Minnesota, and northeast Iowa. So heads up, we got some rough weather coming. And then down to the south, dude. Oh, man.
Could get
really
ugly.
Be sky aware because of the severe weather potential down there.
Yep. 42 degrees and cloudy here in the city of Fountains this morning. Beef and pork exports of $18.1 billion in 2023 had a significant impact on the corn and soybean industries. According to a study released by the U.S. Meat Export Federation, nationally, U.S. pork and beef exports contributed an estimated total economic impact of 14.6% per bushel to the value of corn and 13.9% per bushel to soybeans in 2023. The study shows that despite the headwinds facing the red meat industry in 2023, exports contributed substantially to the value of U.S. corn and soybeans. Marching it off the farm, Chip.
Absolutely, and sending it overseas.
That's
With
right.
every pound of meat goes a little bit of corn and meal.
Well, speaking of overseas, USDA's recent trade mission to South Korea yielded $67 million in business agreements, signaling strong interest from Korean businesses in U.S. food and ag products. You mentioned this at the top, Chip. The first vessel to navigate through a temporary channel near Sawyer's Point following the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore was a tugboat pushing a fuel barge. The companies that own and manage the cargo ship Dolly, which collided with Baltimore's bridge, causing its collapse and resulting in fatalities, are seeking legal exemption from liability, Chip.
Yeah, we'll find out more about it from Ken coming up here in just a little bit.
Tesla delivered about 387,000 vehicles over the first 3 months of the year, the company announced Tuesday morning, coming in far below average analyst forecasts. The poor Q1 delivery numbers set the stage for what analysts expect to be the company's weakest year of growth since at least 2012. Clean Fuels Alliance America expressed extreme disappointment in EPA's final greenhouse gas emission standards for heavy-duty vehicles designed expressly to incentivize electric vehicles. EPA reportedly did not evaluate the use of biodiesel and renewable diesel to meet the new standards, focusing instead primarily on tailpipe emissions. Kurt Kovarik of Clean Fuels Alliance America says, quote, EPA's rule flatly dismisses the benefits of biodiesel and renewable diesel as the lowest cost and most widely available options to kickstart decarbonization of the heavy-duty vehicle sector.
Yeah, it is absolutely unacceptable that EPA did not evaluate biodiesel and renewable diesel on this.
And finally here, the House Energy and Commerce Committee will convene a field hearing in Port Arthur, Texas on April 8 to address the Biden administration's halt on approvals for new liquefied natural gas exports. This pause, implemented while the administration examines the climate impacts of such exports, has prompted concerns among stakeholders. Chip.
All right. Thank you very much, Davis. Let's get this conversation about bird flu making the jump from birds to bovines. Bring in Karen Bonert, editor of Farm Journal's Milk. Wow, Karen, what a happening, huh?
Yeah, fluid situation, obviously, and this is certainly top of mind in the livestock space and especially in dairy. And I think, Chip, good morning, but I think really what producers are wanting to know is how is this going to impact my bottom line, and will this impact milk price? And so far what we know, Chip, is HPAI has not had any direct impact on milk futures. Although I will note, since it was discovered, cheese prices have declined, which of course had put pressure on class 3 milk futures. But what we know is that herds impacted by HPAI have lost milk productions. Cows are not being slaughtered, but of course this certainly poses a concern to our industry. And I think I told you last week, technology just seems to amaze me because we're using monitoring systems to help determine the sickest of cows, the cows that would be most likely to respond from some type of treatment, which has been effective on treating these cows. And of course, like we said, it's showing cow-to-cow spread. But the good news is that cows are recovering after what appears to be a 10-day sick period. Yeah. But I think really what needs to be top of mind with this outbreak, if you will, is biosecurity, which of course is always a good thing. This is always a good conversation. But I would highly recommend producers just to think about the day-to-day traffic into their dairy and out, and work with their herd veterinarian and their team just to freshen up those biosecurity measures, because we're moving cattle so much more than 10 years ago, if you will, and they're moving in and out of states more frequently. And so there certainly has been some restrictions happening.
Yeah. And with the biosecurity issues it's super difficult to keep all the birds out, but that's something that they're going to have to start looking into more in the future. Karen, thank you so much. We've got more conversation on the jump from birds to bovines coming up here with Dr. Fred Gingrich in a moment.
The truth is hard to come by these days, unless you listen to AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host, Chip Flory. Glad that you are with us. Karen Bonert, editor of Farm Journal's Milk, is going to stick around for this conversation. Karen, thanks for doing that.
No, absolutely. Obviously, very interested in hearing what Dr. Gingrich has to say, and just this is a very fluid situation unfolding.
Right. Dr. Fred Gingrich is a doctor of veterinary medicine and is the executive director for the American Association of Bovine Practitioners, and he joins us right now. Dr. Gingrich, thank you so much for making time.
Happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You bet. Let's start with the basics here. Give us a status update. How many herds How many states?
So right now, we don't know exactly the number of herds. This event started in Texas, and there's been confirmations in New Mexico, Kansas, Michigan, and Idaho.
Okay. When did this start? Dr. Gingrich, the reason that I asked that is because, we started hearing this talk of a mysterious disease in some of these dairy herds. And then last week we got the confirmation of the HPAI making the jump from birds to bovines. But when did these herds start to show symptoms?
So the first herds were probably affected sometime around early to mid-February.
Okay.
And the Texas Animal Health Commission probably got involved late February, early March, as more herds were reporting this syndrome.
Okay. Is it still thought that wild birds are the primary source of the infection?
Well, the virus that's been identified in affected cows is the exact same virus that causes HPAI, highly pathogenic avian influenza. There's no difference between the virus in birds, both wild birds, and what it has unfortunately affected the U.S. poultry industry since 2022.
Yeah.
It's the exact same virus. So the assumption is that the initial herds were infected by migratory wild birds.
Okay. Is that changing? Is it developing to where there is some transmission from cow to cow?
Right now, we probably have more we don't know answers than
Yep, that's fine.
Answers. But right now we cannot rule out cow to cow transmission. Just clinically, it kind of looks like that's what's happening. Some of the newly infected herds outside of Texas had purchased animals from areas that had affected herds. And then it has spread within those newly affected herds in states outside of Texas. So that indicates that we probably have some cow-to-cow transmission. What's not known is how does that transmission occur? Does it occur, through their oral secretions, through their manure, urine, aerosolized and respiratory secretions like it is in birds? Or is there some mechanical transfer via the milk when cows are in the parlor together?
Right. Okay. How does that change how livestock producers should be thinking about their HPAI control? Did these animals need to be isolated now?
Well, AABP, in partnership with the National Milk Producers Federation, just put out a biosecurity guideline.
Okay.
Again, we don't know exact mechanisms of transmission, but that essentially focuses on trying to control the wild bird population on your dairy, as long as you're making sure that you're following federal and state regulations in regards to migratory birds. And then B, making sure that you are protecting your herd from cow-to-cow transmission, isolating new introductions, limiting visitors to your farm to essential workers, and just practicing general biosecurity measures for any disease standpoint.
Okay. All right. There is also, or are also, reports that a worker, a human, has contracted the disease. It sounds like symptoms are mild, but nonetheless, a human with HPAI is a rare happening. Does the ability to transmit cow to cow increase the risk of mammal to mammal in general?
I think that's a good question. First, there's been 200 before this event. There's been 200 cases of HPAI in mammals. This is basically a global problem, this HPAI virus. who's at risk when you're talking about humans. Our biggest at-risk population would be the veterinarians and employees of dairy farms, because they are primarily around the infected animals. The risk to the consuming public is very, very, very low, because we know that pasteurization destroys the virus. And so drinking milk, eating beef, that remains safe. That worker was a worker on a dairy farm, and the reports say that they had conjunctivitis, pink eye. And that's one of the signs of this virus in humans. So thankfully, it sounds like they're recovering from the reports that were released.
Okay. Very good. Karen, jump in if you've got anything, but I am going to ask this. I think I just heard what you want what the message to consumers is, that A, milk is safe, B, beef is safe, but is that the bottom line for consumers to understand?
Yes, I think it is. I think the other thing, Chip, is that I think consumers should understand that veterinarians and dairy farmers are doing their best to try to limit this disease and figure it out. Thankfully, this disease in cattle does not cause mortalities. Way different than it is in birds. It's very pathogenic in birds, and it causes very high death loss and the need to destroy some of those flocks when they're infected. That's not occurring in dairy cattle. It only affects about 10% of the cows in the herd and does not cause mortality. So we're thankful for that.
Yes. Boy.
Dr. Gingrich, why that's a bright light. Talk to us a little bit about, as herds are transferring cattle from one state to the next, what precautions should they keep in mind with moving cattle?
Well, if you're a dairy producer and you're moving either your own cattle home from a heifer grower, or you're purchasing animals, talk to your veterinarian about any potential screening that you might want to do for those cattle, which is just good practice for any disease. And then your veterinarian will communicate that to their state animal health official. They're the ones that are tasked with controlling any disease event. So those would be some general guidelines. Certainly, you just need to be careful about herd purchases when we have unknowns with an emerging viral event.
Dr. Gingrich, we're talking about this with dairy, but if you're going to be moving some beef cows around, you need to take the same precautions, right? I mean, just because it's in the dairy, it could also be in beef cows, just undetected because they don't stick their head in a stanchion 2 or 3 times a day.
That's true. It would be difficult to identify the clinical syndrome in the way we raise beef cattle, but there currently are no reports of it in the beef herd right now. But certainly producers and veterinarians should be on alert to monitor and watch for any of those symptoms.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Karen, we've only got a minute left with Dr. Gingrich. Anything else?
No, I think that this is all very good, but I think that just underlines the communication and between producer and veterinarian and that role as a consultant.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Gingrich, where do you want people going for information on HPAI in the dairy herd? If they are a producer, what should be their primary source of info?
Well, I would strongly recommend they work with their herd veterinarian. AABP has resources for our member veterinarians, and then certainly staying on alert from USDA, FDA, and CDC. They have issued alerts on this, which would be a reliable source of information. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Dr. Gingrich, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Don't be surprised if you hear from us again, okay?
Happy to help. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Dr. Fred Gingrich, DVM and Executive Director of the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. And, of course, Karen Boner, Editor, Farm Journal's Milk. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Chip.
You bet. We're talking Port of Baltimore with Ken Eriksen next. It is time for the Soy Checkoff Check-in. Lucas Lentsch is the CEO of the United Soybean Board, and he joins us right now. Lucas, it was great to see you down at Commodity Classic. What is USB doing to build off of what was kind of a crazy week and with a lot of excitement for USB down at Commodity Classic?
It was so much fun. By the way, thanks for joining us in Houston. The soybean farmers from across the country that gathered for Commodity Classic, plus everybody else. What an event. It was actually my very first time at Commodity Classic, I'm proud to say. But it is a chance to really learn, and understand what's on the farmers' minds. And over the years, it's not been a shortage of invitations. It just, schedule-wise, never really worked in.
Yeah.
But this year, to join you and others across the country, it was fantastic.
Well, I tell you what, for the participants to take what is happening with the markets and some of the uncertainty around them, and to come to Commodity Classic and be as positive as they were, Lucas, it's inspirational.
It was clearly the energy of a new year is upon us.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there's just big things happening. Soybeans alone, Chip, think about it. There's 3 legs of this stool, and we know them well. Our number one customer, hands down, is animal agriculture. So whether you're dealing on the chickens or turkeys, poultry as a whole, pork, beef, dairy, aquaculture, animal ag and aquaculture, that space is huge. 97% of what we produce goes into that channel. But here's the thing that I get really excited about, and this is this innovation on energy independence, biodiesel, renewable diesel. Just think about it. The chemistry is right there. It's a drop-in replacement. Literally, a petroleum use today is a soy innovation tomorrow. And the third leg, consumer and industrial application is phenomenal. 1,000+ products out there in the market. If you're a farmer and you're listening to this right now, just know your checkoff is ensuring that there's value in the supply chain waiting for you for years to come.
Right. The theme of USB at Commodity Classic this year was soy much more, which is brilliant. But it really is those 1,000 products or 1,000+ products, ranging from fire extinguishers to the Goodyear tires. Where soy products are going now, Lucas, is amazing.
Yeah, and it isn't any one thing. It's the multitude of things that are coming to life over the course of years of investment. You start thinking about industrial application of soy-based materials and asphalt. There's a lot of asphalt in this country, guys. It's an incredible thought to think about the use and application domestically, and we have to be thinking like that. Yes, right. Global market, we have to be in that space and not letting up one bit, but don't ever underestimate the value of right here at homegrown solutions.
Right. How have your conversations been with the board members, Lucas? Not only the board members, but state soybean boards and other partners.
It's not a surprise to hear this. Farmers have been crystal clear in their words with me. There's actually 3 words that jump right off the page, and that's transparency, efficiency, and accountability. Farmers are expecting and are leading with transparency in the work that we do. The 77 volunteer farmer leaders from across the country, they're working on behalf of the over 500,000 soy producers that are out there funding the checkoff system. Efficiency is making sure, we're not paying for things twice. We're being really efficient in it. And then ultimately accountability. If I'm a CEO, I'm accountable, but at the end of the day, I'm a steward of your office, their office, and I couldn't be more honored to be here.
All right. So National Ag Day was Tuesday, March 19th. Agriculture plays a vital role in our everyday lives, but what does it mean to you, Lucas?
Agriculture, when I think of it, I can't help but this time of year especially think about the smells of spring and starting a new year, whether that's calves being born or the soil opening up, the memories of spring and the thoughts of spring. It makes me homesick. but it's the recognition that we all have a story and where we come from. And the more that society gets further and further removed from the farm, the more incredibly important it is for us to stay connected.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucas. Really appreciate it. Learn more about the Soy Checkoff investments at unitedsoybean.org. Lucas, thanks. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
All right, that is Lucas Lentsch, the CEO of the USB. This has been the Soy Checkoff Check-in. Now, let's get back to AgriTalk.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad you're with us on this Tuesday morning. It sounds like there is some progress being made at the Port of Baltimore to reopen for activity, for shipping in and out of that port. Let's find out just how much progress has been made. Ken Eriksen, Polaris Analytics and Consulting, joins us right now. Ken, great to talk with you. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Chip, for having me on today, and appreciate being on with you despite the topic which is tragic and catastrophic. And here we are 1 week since it happened.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You know, Ken, I'm telling you, if you would have told me that, a container ship, ran into one of those bridge supports at the Port of Baltimore, my first question would have been, geez, how's the ship? Not how's the bridge? It exposed some vulnerabilities, didn't it?
It did. And that's always the case in these types of events that are kind of an unfortunate wake-up call to vulnerabilities. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of engineering work going on to understand what they could do better. And there's already been a lot of prognosticators that overnight became experts and to try to design what the best thing could be. But, these things just don't happen all the time. But they do, and certainly you've got professional crew members on there, and in this case, in Baltimore, you've got ship pilots that are part of the Bay Area there that were navigating that vessel, and from what we can tell was they just lost all control a couple of times. It just went dark, and they were able to, at least, despite the lives that have been lost, and just mourn with the families over that and the contractors, but they ended up saving lives with their professionalism and their trained skills that they have to make the call. And for the police agencies and the State Department, the State Police Department and the first responders to get the bridge shut down,
right?
That shows that the things can work. But boy, when you have just one of these, it's like threading a needle, to try the way this happened. And timing was just, it was too imperfect, too perfect that way is what happened here.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. And you're right. Davis and I were talking about that just yesterday, about how quickly, maybe it was even last week, about how quickly the first responders did respond and got the traffic shut down on the bridge. I can't imagine what would have happened if they hadn't. It would have been
amazing.
Worse.
I've been on many vessels around the world and working with ship pilots and ship captains and working on different projects. And for that to happen that fast just shows you how well trained they are to try to get things announced and shut things down to avert even greater catastrophic situation. And it's unfortunate the bridge went down, and again, the loss of life. But unfortunately, you've got people who are trying to pretend to be experts, and there's a well-placed Washington, D.C. Newspaper that seems to blame the Panama Canal expansion because there's bigger vessels coming. Well, they got the story wrong. The world trade demands larger vessels to have lower costs, and these ships are well designed and built, but they're mechanical, and there's bound to be something that can break. And we know this. We see this all the time. Look, I drive vehicles, and I got to take them to the shops, and it's just tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly is. Okay. What's the status this morning of operations there at the port?
So the port is technically still open. They can receive truck and rail and such, but they're unable to really service large vessels. And today you've got a controlling depth of 11 feet that's available on the north side of the bridge from the wreckage. And that's going to give you, 11 feet, Chip, if you think about it, we've got 9-foot, 6-inch capabilities on the upper Mississippi River for barge traffic. And you basically have, upwards of 14 feet when you go down river. So 11 feet is not much. And so it's really like it was a towboat, a tug, and a barge that went through with fuel for the Department of Defense. Then they're looking so that's open, and that's good to get some of the local traffic moving and some other activity to help with recovery and such. The second, they're going to open another temporary channel to the southbound that will get you to 15 to 16 feet. Now, that would, again, allow for more tugs and more barge traffic. And then they hope to get to a third channel when some more debris is removed that will get you to 20 to 25 feet. The problem with that is most of those container, dry bulk, liquid tank barge vessels, tank vessels, not barge, need 35 to 45 feet of water.
Yeah.
So where that ship is going to be very important to get that cleared in that main navigation channel to really get some of that movement out of there as we go forward. But they're able to start moving things, and that's very encouraging for trade and for commerce then.
Okay, so it's good news, not great news, is what I'm hearing.
That it's progress, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is progress. What does the timeline in your mind look like in restoring full operation?
Tip, I tell you, once they can make sure where that vessel is, if there's anything under the vessel, under the pathway, the navigation channel that is not going to be disrupted. There was talk about some sort of high pressure natural gas pipeline or gas pipeline there that they've got some concern over, but they still got to do some assessments. You've got the insurance filing in court and trying to minimize their damages and such as they go forward. It goes back to old acts on the maritime law is very, very different in many respects as they go forward here. But that won't stop what's going on to try to get progress here. It's just going to be assuring everything is safe, make sure they can get those bodies out, and then they can go and get a better plan devised as they go forward here. So first things first, get the bodies, and then devise a plan to get the bridge cut up and removed, and then the vessel out of that navigation channel. Then they can think of, and this could be still many weeks, if not months, before we see full navigation channel open there.
Right. Question that I keep getting is who's going to pay for the reconstruction of the bridge and for the effort to reopen it.
Yeah, that's going to be already the administration. The president announced last week that the federal government will cover it. That's pretty bold. Yeah. That's pretty exciting. But boy, and there's talks of $400 million. And Chip, if we know anything about infrastructure, it's not cheap. And many times there's cost overruns and things like this. They're going to design this to the best that it can be and to accommodate. And, when you have an opportunity like this, I hate to say it's an opportunity. You can actually maybe expand that bridge and add better capabilities and such, and look at different traffic volumes that you go through there. But it's going to be a long process to go forward here. Right now, they only do about 30,000 vehicles a day, 32,000. So, here in Memphis at the bridge that cracked almost a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we had about 50,000 cars a day. So we understand the plight that does to a community. It's very tragic. That's right. Yes.
Okay. It's not a huge ag trade port, but there is some product that moves through there. What industries are most at risk of some supply side disruptions because of what's happening at the port?
Yeah, if for agricultural commodities and products, Baltimore is the 17th largest port in the United States, handling about 2% of the U.S. containerized ag exports, and the 10th largest, handling 4% of U.S. ag imports. So you're right, it's not huge, but you know what? On the margin, it's very important. because we need every access point that we can to get to the markets. And really the key ag commodities through there is animal feed and these are our containerized cargoes, Chip, and animal feed, grocery items, beer and poultry and soybeans. You think you got, with Purdue Farms and many other Tyson and others that raise chickens around there and process them. Poultry exports are very important there, and the meat products. So that's something we got to watch. But you got nearby ports they can go to. There's going to be definitely extra traffic on the roadways, and the railroads are trying to accommodate with alternative intermodal to shift cargo to different ports, and that would take a bit of effort to do so. So there's going to be some things that need to be done as they go forward here. But if you look on some of the imports, sugar, salt, and cocoa are very important as well.
Yeah.
And then on the energy side, Baltimore is the second largest coal handler of coal exports out of the United States. So that's going to be a certainly an impact on that front. And to me, what I'm watching very closely, where you could see some of that coal move to either towards Norfolk, where there's a large export facility, or does it move to the Mississippi River? And could we see some sort of response on barge freight rates? And we probably won't on the river, but something to watch as we go forward here nonetheless.
Yeah. No doubt. Okay. We've got less than a minute. Can you give me an update on the Panama Canal?
Yeah, there's some good news there. The water levels of Gatun Lake are essentially unchanged now for about 3 weeks consecutively. There's expected to be a sharp drop going into end of April, mid-May, and then rebounding with their seasonal, if the seasonal rains will come, we're still in a dry period. Mm-hmm. And then by early June, we'll start to see the water levels really improve and replenish the lake. The daily transits have been increased by 3 vessels as of last week, so they're now up to 27. Normally, they're doing about 36. So it's heading in the right direction. That's really good news for agriculture, so we can get greater alternatives to ship if we can start to see vessels go back to the Panama Canal, because costs got to be quite high to go through there.
Yeah, no doubt. Ken, great update. Thank you so much. We'll be checking back with you on this, okay?
Thank you, Chip. Have a good day, and we wish the best for those families that have lost their loved ones.
Yep. Thank you for that. All right, Ken Eriksen, Polaris Analytics and Consulting. As I said, we will continue to check in with Ken and get updates as necessary. Davis and I will be right back to wrap up this morning's AgriTalk.
Knowledge is power. We're here to charge your batteries. AgriTalk. And welcome back to it, everybody. Your pal Davis Michelson here on your Tuesday morning edition of AgriTalk. Chip Flory joins as well.
Yes, right here.
Let's okay. A couple of things to talk about here, which have implications for life and limb. Let's leave that aside, and just look at these situations pragmatically. From Karen Bonert, so far, it seems like cows recover after about 18 days. No impact on milk futures thus far. Impacts, of course, to milk production. We've seen some price response, perhaps in cheese. Biosecurity is kind of where she landed. Biosecurity. I think let's start there.
Okay. The milk market, Class 3 milk futures, have not shown much of a reaction, as you said. But boy, the cattle market, live cattle and feeder cattle futures, have shown their vulnerabilities just based on the simple fact. Brian Grady said it perfectly at the bottom of the hour. He said, if you don't know, you get out. And that's what the longs in the cattle complex decided yesterday. Mm-hmm. If there's any uncertainty, they don't like it. And they just simply decided that it was time to get out of the market. So on the biosecurity side, it absolutely is imperative that we keep as many herds clean of HPAI as possible, so that the industry can show an ability to do so. If all of a sudden, bird flu is popping up in dairy herds across the country, that's when we start to worry about, okay, this is more difficult to control than what we anticipated. Now, if the thing mutates and starts to create bigger health issues on the cow side, that's when we really become concerned. No sign of that, according to Dr. Gingrich. No sign of that. But nonetheless, let's show an ability to slow down the movement, which gets you to what you were talking about, the biosecurity side of things.
Yep, absolutely. Dr. Fred Gingrich from the American Association of Bovine Practitioners. Now, according to Dr. Gingrich, the pasteurization process kills whatever bugs, virus, whatever might be in that milk there. So we should continue to drink milk is what I got from that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. This consumer confidence in the product that is rolling through traditional grocery stores, that should not be questioned. The safety of that product. Now, if you are partaking in the raw milk consumption,
can we not?
Then you probably had better pay attention.
Yeah.
I'd
say you're at risk then. Okay, but it sort of manifests itself apparently a little bit like pink eye. Inflammation in the eyes is what I heard. The infected
in this case
person.
Yeah, in this case, pink eye.
Conjunctivitis, if you like. Yeah.
Right. And it's, dang. It's really amazing how the virus, but we do know this, viruses are very adaptable. Viruses are very changeable.
They want to survive.
And if creating bigger problems for the host becomes a way that virus can survive and thrive, well, then it's probably, changes happen. It's just a question of how much time.
Yep.
So we've got to watch it and we've got to be careful. And like the point that I made to Dr. Gingrich, I don't mean to alarm anybody when I said, listen, if you're moving beef cows, you probably need to pay attention there as well and go through some of the same biosecurity issues as a dairy does that is moving cows around. I don't mean to raise any undue concern, but let's be safe, people.
Yes.
Yeah, let's understand exactly what we're dealing with.
Yep. Might be a good time, and this came up a few times in the conversations, both with Karen and with Dr. Gingrich. Get in touch with your vet. Excuse me.
Yeah, right, exactly. And Dr. Gingrich explained very well that your veterinarian is going to be your number one source of information and advice on how to handle this situation. So if you haven't had, I can imagine that you haven't had the conversation with your vet at this point, but if you haven't, have it so that you do know what to watch for and you do know how to respond if you start to see some symptoms in your cows.
On another note, President Biden says the government's going to pay for the bridge.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We can afford that.
Well, you let
here's the thing.
You let the presses run a little longer,
and here's my here's my thought. I mean, if they want to rebuild everything with this sort of green focus in mind, I wonder if they're viewing this as an opportunity to place a major piece of infrastructure in the United States here using some of these green technologies. They're thinking, oh boy, we're going to rebuild this sucker so green you won't even be able to see it.
Yes.
That's my thought.
Yes, they absolutely will. There is no question in my mind. They didn't consider biodiesel and renewable diesel in how we're going to reduce the emissions in heavy-duty trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, if it doesn't fit their story, they don't do it.
There you go.
And the answers that are right in front of them sometimes are ignored too much.
Preach.
Jeff Peterson, Heartland Partners, is our guest this afternoon. Come back, 2:06 Central for more AgriTalk.